As one we walk this earth together. As one we sing to her our song. As one we love her. As one we heal her. Her heart beats with our own as one. As one we join with her, our mother. As one we feel her sacred song. As one we touch her.
Welcome. You have found your way to Souls Emerging, a production of Shadow Genesis through Rise Multiversity. We extend a heartfelt welcome to you. You are the ascension. We invite you here to join with us, holding space for transformation, ours, yours, and our mother planets. Here we are friends, engaging in the inner work while supporting one another as we break our chains. Being present for ourselves and each other through deconstruction and soul reintegration allows us to shift and heal. The impulse to share the miracle of transformation in community has brought us out of separation. We now invite you to join this healing circle as we voyage into fertile ground where innate intelligence reboots, blossoms, and finds solution. Ancient and new abilities emerge among trusted, transparent friends. Our aim is to inspire metamorphosis towards freedom and sovereignty. Let us apply our passion for truth to break free, build personal velocity, transcend the matrix control grid. We are all individually the ascension. We are all a fractal of our planet, of all that is. We have the ability to commune with her directly, share her aspirations and her birth pains. Regardless of how gruesome it appears out there, we have the ability to shift out of distortion, out of imposition. We have the choice in each moment to rise. Welcome.
Her heart beats with our own as one.
Welcome. This is Sienna Lea, Inceptor of Rise Multiversity, and I'm here today with a radical circle of soul sisters. Together we invite you to join in on our research that we've been engaging in for over a year and a half. What if we had all that was required to embody life-supportive global transformation right now? What if we could melt the imposed barriers of suspicion, fear, and separation at a grassroots level, stepping into a potency that could gently topple the matrix control grid? Well, we are a grassroots gathering of women who have been working their stuff, supporting one another through the layers of deconstruction and reintegration. Following the concept of the 100th monkey, we believe that small groups of people willing to step into organic connection can stimulate great shift. Stepping through the invisible shields that have enforced our separation, we can embark as a new peace armada staying the course amidst stormy seas. The ascension becomes integral to our ascension. Can we learn from one another as we complete our journeys? Can we reclaim lost and stolen fragments of self? Can we move past the taboo against knowing who we are and our inability to feel ourselves and one another? Can we bust free from our isolation and targeting, black sheep going against the status quo? Could our strength be in our courage to individually pull off the blinders in full empathy and transparency with one another, we have found ourselves in pieces, engineered to hide in forbidden places, ashamed, fearful, feeling less than. What if we came out, a clear reflection to illuminate the shadowlands for one another, taking back our power from the voices that tear us apart? What if we hold those keys? What if a new radical transparency is ours to bust holes in this mean-spirited system once and for all? We open to this possibility now with you, diving in with loving kindness, without judgment, making mistakes, reclaiming freedom, re-establishing our right to sovereignty. Done with the distortions, flowing home, embracing our organic intelligence. We are becoming a new gestalt of potent peace warriors, excavating baggage, dropping drama, unearthing the energetics to live in non-reactivity. They have kept us apart for so very long because they know we have what it takes. So welcome to this tender nest of women mustering their courage to open their deepest emerging selves with you, knowing it just may be a revolution of vulnerability brewing. What will it take to birth a high vibrational fun field where our love softens the blows and builds the fortitude to rise together? Let's find out. Welcome. This is Sienna Lea.
Hi, I'm Els.
Hi, I'm Liz.
Hi, I'm Cynthia.
Hi, I'm Lauren.
So, welcome to episode 2. I want to point out first your picture, Liz, and behind you. This is a work of art that Liz has done. And did it have a name, Liz?
Sucking Moon.
Sucking Moon. Okay.
Yeah.
Cool. Yeah, it's good to hold it up there. So we're going to start this episode reading from an excerpt from George Kavasilis's book called Our Universal Journey, to set the stage for this discussion and also to help clarify our perspective and where we're coming from. There's a lot of models of ascension, a lot of ideas how we get from here to there. And we felt a need to clarify where we're coming from a bit more so that you're comfortable with the journey that we're taking you on. So we're doing a little bit of a clarification here. So I'm going to start with the first paragraph and then we can go round robin, okay? And the picture's up there. So the picture sinks in with this really great. Okay. The moon pulls the oceans, creating the tides, and is therefore pulling on the emotional body of women. The reality is, George says, we men do not have a clue what women go through and need to gain an understanding of what they experience in their day-to-day lives. The more I get to know women and the divine feminine, the more I realize how unlike her experience of this reality is compared to us men. It is as if they are living a whole different paradigm. The load that every woman on this planet carries is, to varying degrees and depending on soul contract, a fractal of what the divine feminine is going through as a whole. Each woman carries the sacrificial archetype within her. The more we men connect with our feminine side, the greater our understanding, and we achieve balance between the masculine and the feminine. So somebody take the next paragraph and just we'll round robin.
I'm happy to do that.
Cool.
Woman is the keeper and guardian of the hidden wisdom. It had to be that way. This is why the campaigns over eras and epochs of all time have been designed to subdue, suppress, and even wipe the wisdom of woman from our conscious awareness and to remove the innate connection woman has with the natural environment. Women understand the rhythms and cycles of nature on an intimate level and therefore how to live peacefully within them. They naturally held the knowledge of the plant kingdom for healing purposes and survival. They were able to communicate with the plant kingdom, animal kingdom, the Deva kingdoms, Gaia, the sun, and beyond. It was with these natural abilities and knowledge that woman was able to guide their families, nurturing and caring for their well-being.
Due to the suppression of the feminine by the patriarchal priestly caste, their religious ideology, and their zealots down through the ages, including their modern day infrastructure of multinational conglomerates, raping our Mother Earth for resources, gouging her body through deforestation, mining, and underground atomic testing. Women have been systematically cut off from her natural state of being, with only tiny fragments of memory surviving. This has left many women drained of their true vitality, resentful towards males, and in deep emotional pain that even she does not understand at the best of times.
What Mother Earth feels, woman feels in her physical body. When she is experiencing tectonic pressure building up and earthquakes, magma flowing and volcanoes erupting, her magnetic fields fluctuating, atmospheric changes and weather patterns, many women empathically feel it too. The sensitivity to these phenomena affects woman through her cellular tissue of the body, which takes the form of ear tones, as in ringing, rumbling, or diesel engine sounds, pains in joints, muscles, and bones, headaches, and often periods of debilitation, and even skin rashes. There is also emotional sensitivity, feeling wired and feeling drained, edgy, extra sensitive, or depressed. Due to these feelings, many women have to withdraw from daily life and literally hibernate in intense pain, transmuting massive amounts of energy not only for our Mother Earth, but her humanity too. These women are unsung heroes, never noticed for their service nor understood, and often ridiculed as hypochondriacs, or being called some kind of psychic freak by those around them. Their circumstances are not necessarily something they understand either. They just know they are participating in something way bigger than themselves. But how do they put it into words without sounding deluded or in need of a psychiatrist? Many remain silent and suffer in silence, feeling alone, misunderstood, and worthless. Some attempt relief through addictions.
The deep emotional pain that many women carry surfaces and exposes itself through a plethora of emotions and guises. Her natural state is to express love and nurturing. After all, she is one with the power to create life. Woman is the giver and everyone else is the taker, not having the capacity to understand how much of herself she truly gives to sustain her life. There is little to no acknowledgement, let alone understanding of her noble role.
Okay, and so we just wanted to share that to give a context, and certainly not to turn ourselves into martyrs or paint some kind of drama victim story at all, but to bridge an understanding of woman's resonance with the planet herself. And that's what we want to dive into today as well. And let me open up okay. So today we wanted to dive into how we are individually Okay, well, I need to backtrack. This last week, several of us have been feeling the earth in cocoon mode. Normally, we have a different connection to her than we have had. It's like she's gone silent. Now, there's massive unrest on the surface, more earthquakes and volcanoes, I think, than any other time before. Not to mention conflicts and brewing troubles and CERN and HARP and many, many disruptive, crazy, suppressive, oppressive energetics, which we're all experiencing. So in our hearts, what we're holding space for is to be a support for the planet in her, what she's going through. But we are also breaking the martyr archetype, because the feminine needs to come out of that totally. So we're all here serving ourselves. We don't believe that it's just service to self or service to others. We believe it absolutely has to be both. And we're here very selfishly reaching for the completion of our own soul's journey and the integration of all the fragments and all the parts of ourselves over all timelines and all dimensions as we complete our universal journey. That's what we have come together in this time to do, and that's what we are doing. And so in this particular podcast, we're sensing this cocooning, and we're wishing to research and investigate and support and find the resonance within ourselves with what we're going through, and sharing that in transparency with you to deepen our understanding of the moment and our potency to affect a coherence, a harmonic that could be helpful, so that we can lift the frequency and support what's going on and calm the raging storm and dive into organic connection, and where we do have the potency to bring more light, more joy, more love, and more calm to what's going on in this incredibly pivotal time. I feel it's a very pivotal time for our lives. Okay. So my question to you ladies, and whoever wants to begin, how do you feel individually you are in this time accumulating your life force back into your core from all that is compromised, drained, dishonored, ripped off, or dissipated your essence? And you can take this from a number of directions. And the question is, for many people listening to this, well, what is your essence? What is female essence? Because we've strayed so far from it in the patriarchal control grid. We know that many women have been hiding their essence, hiding their vulnerability, hiding the core of the beauty that will be the glue and will be the fabric of connection to coalesce this grassroots sovereign movement of humanity into coming out of slavery and creating a paradigm that is in harmony and in integrity with the life force. That women are absolutely key to this. And yet for us, it's cleansing, it's a deconstructing and a reconstruction. It's a whole process, because we are all embedded in the matrix control grid. So this is our sharing, and our gift to ourselves and to you is to dive into this research. Okay. So you have the questions before you, the ones that we were going to contemplate today. Would somebody like to jump in? We might just talk about what is female essence. What is your experience of female essence for yourself? What is not female essence? You know what I mean, Twiggy girl?
Oh, Twinkie girl is just trying to find out what emotions are. And that's where...
Let's maybe fill them in on our little joke here about who is Twinkie girl for starters. Would you be up for sharing a little bit of that? Because we've been on this journey for over a year and a half now. And we have excavated some layers of our false selves, or the self that was tied to an artificial construct, however you want to language that. And Twinkie girl was one of those constructs. So. Yeah.
Twinkie girl is the front girl, the persona that everybody saw, the nice girl that I hid behind. And
so she was very pleased. Can you describe her a little bit more? Because, I mean, we all have a Twinkie girl, or most of us have a version of Twinkie girl, actually, because that's acceptable behavior in school and in corporations and growing up, so on and so forth. How...
Get along.
What was her behavior pattern?
Get along. Super sweet. Sickening sweet. Super polite. Super apologetic. Oh, golly. You know, the list goes on of society's, good girl.
And did Twinkie girl feel... Yeah. So,
go ahead.
Mm-hmm. And what was your inner experience while you were being Twinkie girl?
Totally different. I mean, just an example. You're trying to get along with someone that's you don't even want to be around, but you're being nice. You're still listening instead of cutting them off and walking away. And I'm just being super polite, not making waves. Not wanting to feel their reaction if I said, I'm done with you. So, because I'm pretty empathic too. Like I said, the front girl, almost the mask, the protection that I would put out.
Holding an incredible vulnerability. As people get to know you better, they're going to understand the level of sensitivity. A highly sensitive person, and that means the level of empathic sensitivity is through the roof. And Twinkie girl was providing a service. However, it was cutting you off from any kind of connection to organic feeling.
Right.
Or your own inner truth. Is that, right. Would that describe it, Bonnie?
Yeah. And emotion, numbing that, not wanting to feel, not knowing if it's my emotion or somebody else's. So we're just numbing everything. We're not reacting to anything. We're hiding. Totally, from myself and from everybody else.
And so that's shutting down intuition, because you have a very highly tuned intuitive presence that's coming online now. Yeah. But so when we shut down, unfortunately, we shut down across the board. Turn off a switch, it turns off the whole switch. And that's our connection to our feelings, our sensuality. It could be our sexuality, our connection to the true universal creator. The whole thing shuts down. Yeah. So you had some feelings about that too, didn't you? I remember you being just a tad angry there for a minute.
Well, that's the thing. When you numb everything, it's like, I didn't even know how to cry. I would go, I'm trying to cry, and nothing would come. Or get angry, chastise myself for feeling emotional, for feeling angry. You shouldn't feel like that. What society says, and especially don't do it in front of anybody. That would be horrible if they saw that. Anybody. So learning that again.
So what brought you to the place where you actually were willing to participate in a group like this? Oh,
Well, it was a friend of mine and it was a little over 2 years ago. And she goes, you need to just go home and cry. And I'm like, why would I want to do that? She goes, just listening to you saying you shouldn't feel like that. Well, you got to feel your emotions. Why? And that really got me thinking. And I went, oh, well, you know what? She's right. And that got me on the path. And then a few months later, Embody You showed up in my field of vision. And not realizing I had to participate, I signed up for it. And then when you said I had to talk, I'm like, talk? You mean in front of everybody? And just so you know, reading in front of people is way back from childhood. My heart was in my throat. So you probably noticed me stumbling in the beginning. That was huge for me to do that. So just a little side note there.
Well, thank you. We really appreciate that. Yeah. Yeah. And the voice, the being vulnerable, they say that speaking in front of others is one of the most stressful things for anybody. I don't know what the other one is, but that's right across the board. So that shows you how much social pressure is exerted to keep us silent.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So, yeah, that's, and
so you
had
physical, you put a lot of all of this unexpressed. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Oh golly, 29 years ago, I developed Epstein-Barr. And I don't know, it's a real thing. And so I've been dealing with that for the last, 29 years. And, just, I think letting my emotions out has been hugely healing for that, taking back my power kind of thing. I know that's used a lot, but realizing how much power I really have from feeling like the victim, not really realizing I'm feeling that, but going, oh yeah, okay, just by doing this, and this, I'm acting like a victim, take control of this, and you can do it. And just observing how I'm reacting to things now is way different. Going through the Embody You and then Shadow Genesis, learning how to cry again. That's really healing. And you think, oh, it's a horrible thing, and then your face looks all icky afterwards. Well, so what? Cry, scream, get it out. Wow. And then you kind of go, wow, that was fun. Let's do it again. I know.
A bit like the kid at the candy store these days. And you were angry for quite a while. You were angry and expressing it, and the frustration coming back into embodiment, these layers of frustration. But you decided to jump in and let it rip.
That's right. Bitching and swearing.
For as long as it needed.
I still do a lot of that in the car.
Yeah, I'm not trying to. I'm sure this is an ongoing process, a lifetime of suppression.
Oh yeah,
and illness.
I mean, this is. I'm like, this is just the first layer. I mean, I did a lot of little layers without a whole lot of success, but getting back into my emotion, real emotion, has opened up a whole new world. And I just can't wait to find out what's next. And it's not as bad as I thought. I thought there'd be this horrible, deep, dark secret horrible things, and oh, you know what, it's not that bad. Just get into it and do it. And I did it. I'm doing it.
How is your physical health right at the moment?
Man, I have better. I feel really stronger than ever. Yeah, I feel things, and I really think I'm feeling things, well, actually, that are real. The earth and her.
Well, I'd like to go into that a bit as well, because I know that you do. And this painting, can you share what you are feeling with the earth right now? And you may not know, but what you're sensing in your.
Well, it was yesterday morning. I just saw her sinking into herself, and peacefully. I mean, it wasn't like I'm going to go hide. It was more like, okay, I just need to rest for a little bit, recoup. And I've felt the same thing the last few months. It's like, okay, I just need to go back into myself. It wasn't alarming, but I felt there were some undulations still happening. There's things happening in her womb, even though she's resting. And during our meditation, I felt myself going with her. You
did?
Yeah, I did. It's almost like I sank in there with her. It's like, oh, okay. She just took me right with her. So,
did you get anything about what this is really about? About what this is? Is this the calm before the storm? Is this because I'm curious what you all get in relationship.
Yeah, I'm not getting a storm, like she's going to explode out of this. It's almost like, okay, I need to take a few breaths. This insanity, I don't need to deal with right now. And it's almost to come back refreshed and go, okay, let's get back to work. That's what I'm feeling through all this.
Well, I'm feeling that there's so much manipulation of weather modification and manipulation of the shifting of her teutonic plates. I mentioned this in the last podcast, I believe. It seemed to me a huge violation, like in inducing, because we know there are going to be massive earth changes, or at least I believe that there will be. And we also know that the whole magnetosphere went missing for 2 hours several weeks ago. And we also know that the North Pole has shifted where it is, and it appears that we are in the beginning stages of a pole shift. And so there's a gigantic amount of imposition upon her, which there has been all along. For eons of time, huge imposition upon her. And and then you're looking at the moon here too, and the picture, and don't know if you feel like speaking to that. What inspired you to create this moon matrix? This is another topic, and I know we're going to go into this in these podcasts because there's so much moon worship as the divine feminine is returning. Mm-hmm.
And that's part of it, because the answer isn't there on the moon. It draws us, but I feel like it sucks our energy. Anybody that how can I word this? The earth is our mother, and I feel the moon was a living thing at one time, but now it's not. But but still the position that it's in, it is sucking at us. And
I'd actually like to open the discussion on the moon at this point as an initial dive into this topic. If anybody has something they want to say in regards to their own direct experience of that, or their own awareness of what the moon is doing to the feminine. If anyone wants to share at this point.
well, I can finish and say that I enjoy looking at the moon, but I don't feel the draw as I went through, various things to get where I am today, healing things and different modalities where it involves the moon. I never felt that draw, and I couldn't continue because the energy just wasn't there for me. It wasn't heartfelt.
Els?
I'm remembering, Liz, do you remember prior to the winter solstice, I believe we collectively as a group were talking about this, and individually we were talking about concluding our contract with the moon, that her energies were not to influence us any longer without our direct permission. I have experienced the same thing as Liz. They're lovely, lovely moonlit nights, but that doesn't mean that I'm engaged with the moon's energy, and I certainly don't participate in any moon rituals or think of her as the mother. I've never resonated with the mother moon and father sun paradigm. It just didn't feel quite right. If anything, the moon felt perhaps more like a sibling at the most, but I never put a lot of energy into it. What I felt was important when I stood in my little patch of green, looking at her at dawn and concluding the contract with gratitude and appreciation for a job well done, because most certainly that construct is doing its job well. We don't have to like it, but there is an acknowledgement that it is pretty effective. I received an inflood of my own energy back as I reclaimed my energy, and I returned the energy from that construct that didn't belong to me. And I just stood in tearful gratitude for a period of time, and that's been it for me.
Yeah, I agree. And I agree with what you're saying, Els. And I also remember that time when it started to make sense to me to reclaim my energy from the relationship that I was building with the moon that was incorrect. And I had I used to do moon ceremonies, and two things happened that were so out of hand and out of control while I was doing moon ceremonies. The first one was kind of during the new moon. I would go outside and I would make affirmations with a friend, and we would affirm each other's affirmations, and then we would burn them, and I put the ashes in my white rose bushes. And a month later, red roses started growing on the white rose bushes, 2 red roses. That was for a new moon ceremony. And for a full moon ceremony, my friend said to me, let's have a full moon gathering with a bunch of girls. And I said, okay, what should we do? Let me see. And I went and I bought a bunch of flowers, and we made flower crowns, and we were going to release something and declare it to each other. And when we released it, we were going to crown ourselves with flowers. So we made the flower crowns. We were all outside, and then the flower crowns sat on the table, and we started writing down what we were going to release. all of a sudden the neighbors ran out of their house saying fire, and the hillside was on fire. And we had to dismantle everything from the house. I had to take the car out of the garage, the driveway. We called the fire department. We had champagne and a cake that said magic. And so the firemen put the fire out, and then we fed them this cake. And I was like, what did we just tap into? That was insane, So I can see through those two examples that something was going on in between me and the moon, as far as like these contracts that I was making, that I was in unrealization that I was making, because those two things are pretty intense physical connection examples. I mean, especially lighting an entire hillside on fire. I mean, it wasn't me that lit it. It was like the neighbor, but it was the coincidence. And I have since completely pulled myself back from that relationship, but I can actually still feel the moon's pull on me and my pulling back from it. But I can still feel it being like, hey, it's still pretty intense as far as that pull. It's like this. It's like a sinister pull that I can still feel is sort of lurking.
Well, I think it is a sinister pull. It's my understanding that the moon is a craft, that we have a great reverence for the moon. I think our genetic memory recalls its amazing beauty and the great service it did. But it's been co-opted. And that with the Saturn, a lot of the targeting of individuals and the interdimensional warfare affecting all of us is focused on the moon and on Saturn. And it's a grand deception, as George would say, because we are worshiping the moon. There's bodies of women that are doing they're coming out of the closet with their bleeding, and they're tired of hiding and feeling shame and guilt about their menstrual cycle, which is a time that we do not succumb to that, because women were unclean with the Abrahamic religions. You couldn't sit in synagogue. You couldn't be present. You had to go into the red tent, lock the tent door. You were dirty and unclean, and this was the patriarchal take. So it's totally understandable that women want to take back their bodies, and they want to take back the feeling of not being shamed with that horrible sense of themselves that is deeply embedded in the female psyche. So this is a very sticky wicket, because now there's a whole movement to reclaim this and to heal this, but it's involved moon worship. So we're worshiping the very thing that's oppressing us. And I hate to bring this up to women. There's a lot of young women here. I'm in Ecuador, and some of the beautiful indigenous and Latino women are doing it with such a pure spirit. And I just haven't been able to burst their bubble and go, no, that's a craft, and it's vampirizing your energy, and you need to stop. It's a very difficult situation, this moon thing.
Well, my entire life, as a menstruating female, I was very regular, and I was very regular to the moon, and I would use the moon as a guide. And I'm talking like in my 20s, in my early 20s, I understood it as something that I was to flow with and towards, and it would guide me. And so I think that breaking those habits, it's such a long habit, especially in, just only talking this lifetime, such a long habit that I'm now trying to figure out what to as I'm experiencing my own female essence come back into organization and truth, a new way of experiencing the cycle and experiencing my essence connected to the earth versus the moon. And it's like a habit that needs to be fortified, that a new habit and the breaking of the old habit, because that old habit was just sort of programmed. I feel that it was being programmed into the moon.
Yeah. Yeah.
Did you want to say something, Cynthia?
Yeah. I really vibe with all this and agree about the programming. I have a little bit different experience with the moon. My menstrual cycle was until into my early 20s was very, very, very painful. In the beginning, I can remember being in like social studies class in junior high and almost passing out from the pain, like seeing stars. And
yeah, and I want to ask you about how you break a contract with the moon, because that probably would be something that would be interesting to express. But this is very important because, if you talk about the 13 grandmothers, and there are several versions of that, or any of the sources that are being respected now by women on the planet, in the return of the feminine, the return of the divine feminine, we all sense that if we're going to come into any kind of balance with ourselves, the planet, we are going to have to restore the essence of the feminine, the nurturing, the unconditional love, the compassion and the empathy and the intelligence of connection and cycles of life. What we're saying is that there's been a huge distortion imposed on all of us, on the feminine, on all of us. And we are in the process of individuating, of discerning of what that distortion is, so that we can return to the female essence and we can embody that, and we can be a part of the solution. We can show up with our sacred activism. We can show up with our presence. In a lot of times, the grandmothers say this: you don't need to do anything. Be there. Your presence will change the outcome of what you're involved in. But our presence has to be grounded and anchored in this true, non-distorted feminine, or what George calls the natural woman. And we know there's a dark feminine. We know there's a distorted feminine. And we know that in order to survive this planet, and we're going to get into this more in the weeks ahead, we have had to adopt through our egos and through our complicity, our contractual arrangements with the dark interference that has co-opted the planet, that we've all of our ancestors have cut deals with the dark side. So there's this whole web, imposition, this overlay on our beings. And it's being held in place in part by the moon matrix and Saturn, along with lots of other interferences now. So the journey and the investigation is, how do we unwind ourselves, unweave this dastardly plot, and return, find ourselves again within this? And that's the point of talking about this. It's a sad thing. It's a very heartbreaking thing, because it's like saying, well, that deep love affair you've been having with this beautiful orb that we dance in, we give ceremony to, and our hearts have opened to, well, that's an alien craft, okay? And it's totally messing with you. And it's totally perverting you. These are hard things to face. They're hard things to come to grips with. Yeah. But there's a layer of this that the menstrual pain, the huge pain, besides being a fractal of the mother and feeling her pain, a lot of it is engineered by this imposition. that we're worshiping. So Cynthia, you didn't want to go first, but you're not first now. Can you speak to the female essence that isn't the natural woman, like this differentiation between the distortion and the pure? I mean, I know it's a gigantic topic, but can you unearth any aspect of that feels appropriate for your journey right now?
Well, just this past week or so, I've been feeling, just to give just a little bit of background. When I've lived in this place, this beautiful secluded valley, with most of the time of 25 years here, except for the last year and a half or so, with my husband who passed. And I am now in the process of getting this place ready to sell. Dealing with the last year and a half with a process of letting go, of transmuting, and of reclaiming. Letting go of Bruce and Cynthia, this construct that we were this couple for 35 years. And I'm now at the place where I realize that, I've realized this is time to sell. But there are some things that need to be done. And so in this last week, I came to a point of just, I had an accident, an injury where I tripped and fell. Hurt myself pretty good. And that really got my attention that I needed to go within. And as I came inside and did that, I recognized through a lot of tears of rage, tears of pain, tears of grief, that there was a connection to something that I spoke of in the last podcast, which was Lemuria, and this time, the end times in Lemuria, and having a lot of power, not being able to stop the destruction and being caught up in it. And
that's a past life that you were integral with.
Yes,
okay.
A past life.
We won't go into the details of Lemuria, but we know that's a place where the feminine actually did have a level of connection to source and self and some empowerment, and that came to an end. And you have a deep connection to that. So this is what you're referring to?
This is what I'm referring to. And this is something I've been working on that's been coming up for me recently. Just to state that as a woman coming into my power as an empowerment, that I've been asking for, I regularly ask for what is ready to come up. And so this is what was showing itself to me. So I could feel this connection. It felt the same as the end of this other life in Lemuria. And the feeling is, under everything, it's a feeling of terror, really. I mean, it came.
Before you go on there, let me just clarify, if I may, please, Cynthia, that it's my understanding that in this time, many of us are completing multiple timelines. You could call them parallel lives, or you could just call them past lives. There's lots of beliefs around that, and I hope we don't get stuck in belief. It's happening to so many people that because besides all the imposition and the suffering, there is a huge influx of love and higher frequency energy that is stimulating a great awakening, a global great awakening. And it is spontaneously bringing everything up out of our unconscious that needs healing, love, attention to be integrated. We don't get rid of any of it. We bring it all back into ourselves, into the core of our heart. And there are soul fragments, soul retrievals that in this time of completion are spontaneously layered with what we're experiencing in the now. And Cynthia, who has done a lot of work on herself for a very long time, herself,
Yeah.
is transverses these realities quite comfortably and quite often. So I just wanted to say that is what you're referring to, that as you're dealing with, you're a woman alone with this huge property, and it's an enormous amount of work. It's an enormous amount of work, and you're all alone doing it. So that is being a mirror for connecting with a synergy from that other time that needs to be completed. And it's important to remember that the feminine has been desecrated, destroyed, suppressed, oppressed, huge violence creating against the feminine. So when we're saying, oh, well, let's, bring back the divine feminine, it is through the portal of where we got devastated, torn apart, and so traumatized that many of us made contracts then to go into the matrix control grid and to not live from essence any longer, to not live from authentic presence any longer. It was just too threatening. Now, happy days are here again. The feminine is the savior. Rah, rah, the divine feminine. Well, a lot of it is still held within the veil of these traumas. And we're hoping to model and just share in a quiet, intimate way with other sisters and men who are interested in learning to excavate their own feminine and to hold space for women to return, knowing how crucial it is for the planet and for existence here. To have patience with us while we express for the first time, maybe ever, these kind of situations. So, and you're saying you're ready to move out of victimhood. And I know you are.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, because these feelings of being a victim definitely came up, and of not being enough. Not being enough to stop the destruction in Lemuria. Not being enough, the terror underneath, I recognized, was not being enough to complete this enormous task and actually be able to move on like I want to.
That is so important. I didn't mean to interrupt you there. I'm getting this message so strongly because in the patriarchal paradigm, we get approval, we get brownie points and our gold stars for doing. We feel good about ourselves when we're doing, but not when we're being. And we bring this up, but I don't think we can bring this up enough. And yet it is the beingness of the feminine returning that is going to create the shift wherever we are being, because people will feel safe enough to open up and healing will occur, and things that could go into violence get resolved, and places where we're stuck, solutions will be found. This is a cornucopia, a blessing from the divine feminine, but it can only come when we are authentically embodying this essence. And that means being, doing, having big stretches of, or at least some stretches of our time where because in the being, it gets stronger, which feels like what the earth herself is doing right now, is pulling back from the distortion. We say that the surface is Gaia and the core is Sophia. There are many aspects to the feminine. Gaia is still hurting and embattled and going through all of this reactivity. But the Sophia, the essence, is moving, separating, individuating, discerning back, pulling herself out of the distortion into a core essence where she can grow stronger in this beautiful sacred space of, and this is why we want to send love and appreciation to her and to ourselves, because we're not going to be able to show up for the crucial events that are unfolding and shift them in the way they need to if we haven't anchored this being.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sorry to interrupt you. I'm just feeling a need to clarify a bit.
Yeah, that's great. So in this feeling of just wanting to stop and just be, and finding the balance there so I can do what I need to do and be also. I mean, but that's why I fell down and hit my head this morning. So I would come in and be, you know. It was a real message to me. And what came out of that eventually was that really, that was the most important thing. This is about self-empowerment. This is about loving myself. This is about all that goes towards completing my journey this time.
As one we sing to her our song. As one we love her. As one we heal her. Her heart beats with our own as one. As one we join with her our mother. As one we feel her sacred song. As one we touch her. As one we heal her. Her heart beats with our own as one. As one we walk this earth together. As one we sing to her our song. As one we love her. As one we heal her. Her heart beats with our own as one. As one we join with her our mother. As one we feel her sacred song. As one we touch her. As one we heal her. Her heart beats with our own as one. As one we walk this earth together. As one we sing to her our song. As one we love her. As one we heal her. Her heart beats with our own as one. As one we join with her our mother. As one we feel her sacred song. As one we touch her.